about this great project that I have all these clues, and Kent called me up about this, and then my dear sister called me and said Kelli is the one.
Are we ready?
I am. You ready?
Yeah, just are you gonna ask me questions or do I just
I
jump
am.
in? Oh,
I'm,
okay.
I'm gonna ask you questions, but you're gonna talk a lot.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, Ash. Hey, everybody. This is Monty Steed. This is a seat at the table. I have, of course, the phenomenal Kelli. She is a true trendsetter. She has a solution. When we think about our legacy, there are things that we need to think about. How we put together a picture of who we are and what we will leave for our community. It's a question that we need to understand that in order for our children to have a seat at the table, you have to leave one. So, Kelli, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Your thought leadership is definitely needed in our community. Why don't you share with all the individuals that are watching see at the table just the premise of what your project is, obviously a little background on Camelback, and just the real vision that you have and what you want them to do.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I am Kelli Saulny, the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Camelback Ventures. This month we are officially launching the Generational Inheritance Initiative, which is an initiative that actually was birthed out of a blog post that I did back in 2019 that challenged readers, and I'm now challenging the audience moving forward to really reshift how we think about generational wealth. And what I mean by that is, I really want us to reframe the conversation around generational wealth, which places the responsibility on the individual for wealth creation, to move to generational inheritance, which is more about cooperative power and cooperative wealth accumulation that the community can build upon generation after generation. So just to give you a simplified kind of explanation of that is, most of the time when people think about generational wealth, first of all, they're usually thinking about it in monetary terms. And they usually think about like what the great grandparent passes on to the grandparent, very linear. What I am challenging with that framework, which is more of the inheritance piece, is it really doesn't matter how much money we pass down from generation to generation if each generation keeps inheriting inequitable conditions and reinvented racism. So we have to have both. So for me, there is no wealth until we really think about inheritance as a whole. So that is the push, if you will, for the Generational Inheritance Initiative. In celebration of Black History Month, next week we are actually launching our first campaign under the initiative, which is the Next in Line campaign, which is a call to action digital campaign where we're asking everyone to post on Tuesday, February 9th, a picture of someone that someone from their past, like an elder, a mentor, so forth and so on, that they've inherited something from that has made a positive impact in their lives, and how they're going to use that to positively impact the next in line, aka the future.
So when you think about that, that might confuse people because they may not know an example. So if I was going to post something, then I was going to think about my uncle. What would I post, and how would you want people to post and
Well,
tag?
yeah, no, thank you for that. So we've actually built out custom frames. So we're asking everyone to go to camelbackventures.org/inheritance. And as soon as you get there to the website, there will be a link for you to upload your picture and answer three simple questions. The whole process will take you all of 3 minutes, but it'll say like, I inherited, and you fill in the blank from my blank. And it actually walks you through how to post the picture, and it'll create a unique image for you. Again, if you go to www.camelbackventures.org/inheritance, there are plenty of examples for you, and you can see you can use those as inspiration to do your own picture.
Well, I love that. I mean, it gives everybody an idea of how they can really get involved with what you're doing. For you, what'd you post? Have you posted yet? Or you wait until Tuesday? What are you gonna post? How many times are you going to post? What is your best girlfriend and guy friend going to post? Just what does this movement look like? Is Carol going to post? When you think about that, is any of your friends that you know, have they talked about or shared what they'll post?
Yeah, so a few things on that. I just literally maybe 20 minutes before we went live, I did post sorry, the dimmer. Sorry. I'm in the office and the dimmer is time that I can't control it. But I did just post a sneak peek on my Instagram. Um and Camelback Ventures has posted a sneak peek on a few different platforms, including LinkedIn. But we're asking everybody to post on the same day, which is February 9th, Tuesday, February 9th, because we want to really make a big, we want to create a big moment at one time where we have people far and wide declaring their inheritance to have one voice around how we're going to change the future. So we're asking everybody to post on the same day to really create a moment on social media.
Well, I love the collective thought, and I think that the 9th February sounds exciting. What are you going to post?
So the sneak peek that I just posted was a picture of my parents right after they graduated from college. And what I posted was I inherited my work ethic and service to others from my parents, which their friends know them as Gert and Flo. Uh, um, and I will use that to create a more equitable ecosystem for entrepreneurs of color. And the reason why, and I'm sure I'll do multiple posts, and I encourage everyone to. I mean, I definitely have had a lot of people. I'm blessed to have a lot of people to have impacted my life that I've inherited a lot from. But I started with my foundation, which is my parents, because my mom was a nurse and my dad was a teacher. And my mother always wanted to be a nurse and she loved nursing. And my dad was a teacher and a basketball coach, and he always wanted to do those things and loved both of those things. So I grew up in a house where people really love, I didn't grow up in a house where people complained about going to work. People actually loved what they did. So, I give them a lot of credit for my work ethic because I feel like in my mind, I was just always conditioned to get up and love what you do. And that's what you do every day. So that's what I'm thankful for my parents that I inherited from them.
That sounds a classic photo. I love the ideas of just continuing to amplify great Black stories, great Black images, to encourage the inheritance of things that are they're intangibles that many of us may not identify, that gave them the capacity and they didn't give away their agency. And I think that what I love about this when I heard about it was it allows us to take our agency back,
Mm-hmm.
that we can really take our agency back. And that's what we're doing when we make sure that we recognize and kind of project what we will do so that we're claiming and owning in advance. What can you share with individuals about that?
Yeah, so the purpose of the exercise is really for every participant to be the bridge from the past to the future. Because that's the moment we're living in now, right? Is that our generation is we're kind of in this renaissance moment slash dark moment where America's having this identity crisis. And I really feel like this is a great time for our community to really create and be, we've always been creative and courageous, but this is our time to really push forward. As we've been doing generation after generation, we keep pushing the line forward. And so for us, this campaign is basically giving the space and the platform to build a digital community again, so we can have one voice and everyone can feel like they're a part of a bigger movement moving forward.
Well, I think the other thing is just consciousness. Like, let's all have a level of consciousness on a particular day that accentuates the fact that we do believe in ourselves in that. When you think about reducing the wealth gap and increasing the individuals, what do you expect people to also own so that they know that it's their responsibility to manage and prepare, that someone takes, even if it's just their spirit with them, and inherit that from them?
Well, I think one of the things that I want everyone to feel from this campaign and just the initiative as a whole is you don't have to directly be working in advocacy work to make change, right? So everyone can make change. We make daily decisions every day that is going to impact what we would say the next in line, right? The other thing I want people to understand from this campaign is inheritance isn't something that's you have to be thinking about 50 years from now or 100 years from now. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a Katrina survivor. Katrina was only 15 years ago. That was absolutely in, my lifetime. And I moved back to New Orleans 4 years ago now, and I see how the city is still feeling the remnants of Katrina, right? So you're talking about just a 15-year window in which the city is different and the inheritance of what the city was then versus now is different, right? So yes, we got Mardi Gras back. Yes, we got the infrastructure back. Yes, we got a lot of great things back in New Orleans. But we also live in a city where 2021, almost 50% of the Black men are unemployed. Our school system is really challenged at this point. About 1/3 of local New Orleanians couldn't even come back to the city because they were displaced because of lack of home ownership. So all of those things really matter in terms of how one thinks about inheritance, particularly now that we have to recover from COVID. So if you think about us in COVID now, how we will recover, I should say, from COVID now. I would challenge everybody to think about what, as we continue to recover, let me say it that way, and we continue to rebuild, what is it that you want to see happen in the next 10 to 15 years, 5 years? It doesn't have to be 50 years from now. So if a newborn has been born in COVID now, there'll be 15, using the Katrina math, 15 years from now, what kind of school systems are they going to inherit? A 15-year-old now, 15 years later, they'll be 30. What's the job market going to look like they're going to inherit based on how we make decisions to recover from COVID now? So what we're talking about, when we talk about inheritance, I really want people to know that these are things that are going to happen in our lifetime, not, for some long stretch down the path.
So the obligation that we are assuming, I guess, as being that conscious, which I love about what you're doing, continues to kind of create some new traditions in ownership of the fact that we're being impacted by every decision, and what we do does that. Maybe we should take a look at the website and see what it looks like, and you can kind of talk me through it. Let's say, the Camelback. That sounds good. Hold tight.
Okay.
Ashley? All right. We're here. Talk me through it. It looks beautiful.
Okay. So, yeah, so this is an example. And if you want to go to the carousel a little further down.
Not really. I want you to tell me about the person I'm looking at right now.
Okay, if you go up, the person you're looking at, if you go up, go back up a little bit, that's Coretta Scott King. And I use her. There's a quote that Coretta has that I use as my North Star for this project, where she says, freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And I find so much power in that quote, because I think it's just, it really just speaks to every generation plays a part in how, in generational inheritance, and what the next generation will inherit based on what the last generation leaves behind. So I use that quote and Coretta both as my North Star for this project. So that's the quote you're seeing now. I inherited my determination and passion from Coretta Scott King, so I can leave behind a world where everyone's voice is heard when they see inequity around them. So as you can see, the coming February 9th button, that'll be live on February 9th, and you'll click that button and you'll be able to you'll be able to upload a picture of someone that you want to honor, and just you'll basically fill in what the white spaces are. So after I inherited mine, you would fill that in. After from, you would fill that in. just so I can leave behind, you would fill that in. And these don't have to be essays. These are just meant to inspire and really get the audience just really empowered in thinking. So that's Coretta that you're looking at. But if you scroll further down just a little bit to the carousel, so a lot of these are from Camelback Ventures. So for instance, I inherited my tenacity from my grandmother. That's our senior director of marketing. That's her grandmother. I inherited my capacity to love from my parents. That's our economic development lead. So, I mean, these are just all from Camelbacks just to get people inspired. But if you scroll, see the two people in the cap and gown, those are my parents. If you scroll a little further, let's see. Keep scrolling. Yep, these two right there. Oh, we keep missing them. But those are my parents. But if you stay right there, this guy in the cap, where I say I inherited my competitive spirit, that's my dad. That's my father. But these are all teammates, aunts, grandparents, so forth and so on.
Thank you. So when you think about your parents and what your parents are doing now, it's important that we share these and get our friends to share them. So we want our community to have this collective mindset to understand and acknowledge that they received an inheritance that's kind of bigger than just physical things, given we already know that we literally have been oppressed the entire time we're here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, listen, money matters. I'm certainly not trying to, by any means, downplay that. What I'm saying is, for you to really feel an impact, we all work hard, right? And most of us are trying to build wealth. I know I am. So I'm certainly not shying away from that piece. But I think in order for us to really be able to optimize our fortunes, again, we have to think about the collective of what we're passing along, right? So the values, the practices, as well as continuously strive to create a more anti-racist, equitable world, future for the next generation. Because until we do that, the impact of the money will always be muted by other inequities. So we'll never be able to optimize the fruits of our labor until we get the inheritance piece correct. And when I say correct, until we achieve it, because I don't want to. We fight every day for this, right? So it's certainly not anything that we're doing wrong. But let me rephrase that and say until we really achieve it.
Well, I want to challenge you there. I think you're giving a prescriptive idea to an additional movement that everyone should know that they should participate in, whether they choose to or not. The whole idea when you're at the seat of the table is to have a conversation that illustrates, are you really in a movement? And I think the conversation that you're having is, this is a movement on the 9th. Are you part of a continued movement to erase racism and to make sure that you're inheriting characteristics that can be passed down? Like, you can't use the North Star of Coretta Scott King and as a young woman not understand that you don't have to mute yourself. She was still there standing. So I think it's beautiful that you're allowing people not to mute themselves, but if anything, say, claim your greatness.
Yeah, I don't think I was saying mute yourself. I was just making a point about the money. And I was saying that in terms as it relates to generational wealth, I was saying that even if you strive or achieve to pass down the money, if that next person in line is still inheriting inequitable conditions, the money piece, the impact of the money that the money could make will be muted by other levers, excuse me. So, and the other thing I'll say to that is even, and I'm just going to give you some data, particularly from a Black and white standpoint, even when Black families are fortunate enough to pass down an inheritance to their children, or, whoever, it still is a stark difference in what Black families are passing down versus white parents, right? So there's one study that shows that only 13% of college educated Black families can pass down an inheritance of $10,000 or more, where 41% of white families, no matter if they're educated or not, can pass down an inheritance of 10,000. So that's almost four times. That's four times as many white people, right? It's the same thing. And if you go a step further, excuse me, I think the average inheritance for those Black families is maybe about 40,000, where the average inheritance for a white family is around 150,000 or something like that. So that's still four times as much. So again, the money alone can't close the gap, because white people, their wealth tends to be stickier. So the only way that we're going to really close this gap is to create, and I keep belaboring this word, but to basically to create a world where your Blackness isn't working against you the way it is now. And to your point that you made earlier, we have to also acknowledge the fact that, for most of America's history, we've been excluded from wealth building, right? So as we continue to build wealth for ourselves, like I said, I would challenge everyone to not just think of the wealth as the monetary terms, but as a people, as a community, what do we need to pass down to ensure that this wealth can stick and endure across future generations?
And I was, as your brother, saying that you were allowing us to unmute ourselves, like
No, I hear you.
to really say, get involved in a movement, because like we've not won when we've been silent. We really haven't won when we're not protesting. If there's nothing that we can say now, we have not won being calm. We have not won by being homophobic. We have not won by not acknowledging the fact that we need to elevate our women. We have not won by any of those things. So I was saying you're unmuting the whole what people want muted, because many people want us to be calm. Many people want us not to challenge the status quo, and that's even cultural status quo. Really acknowledging the genius behind a young sister pushing this idea forward, or that BLM is led by women, and why don't we love that? And I think that this conversation really makes us imagine ourselves in a new way.
I think no, thank you for that point. And I just want to say, I just want to pick up on something you said about how like most people don't want to challenge the system. The reality is most people are incentivized not to challenge the system. So what I'm trying to do with this initiative is say, actually, you gain more incentives by, to your point, unmuting yourself and really thinking about how this impacts not only you, but those that are coming behind you, that you are working so hard to leave something behind for.
Well, I'm thinking, but on top of building just with this idea that you have, and you need to see yourself differently every day, and you need to acknowledge the facts and the beauty and the competence and the character that you have, that you can see in those two people standing next to each other, that were strong, in a dad who's proud and shows up and is visible. I think those are the things that we're saying, obviously, at least what I hear you saying, but I also think that unraveling and the continuation of a movement, is how I really see what you and Camelback, but I see you doing this in a way that says, hey, unmute yourself, like come out and say this and be a part, and then acknowledge anybody that you want, but at least say you got something. Because the other thing is, it's raising self-esteem. When we can show ourselves, we can showcase ourselves. You're literally showing a black flag of love to people that might need that inspiration in a day just to make it through the day, which we're always,
Yeah, I mean, I think these are public commitments I'm asking everyone to make, right? I think I'm saying if you mute yourself and declare it, that's a public commitment that you're making. So no, I think you're spot on with.
well, the candor of what you're doing is probably the opposite of what people would expect. Like, to me, what I love about what you're doing is painting culture in a motif that is often omitted. If it's not music, if it's not sports, if it's the person that really sacrificed to get a child to FAMU, whether they sent a dime or not, they hoped you made it through, no matter if they had it. And I'm clearly not saying you, but a lot of us have been at HBCUs.
I went to FAMU. That's what I thought.
Well, no, I was talking to you, but I'm just saying, you got a dad. You literally were there, but and I know that there are people who had parents that their dad wasn't there. He wasn't sending no check. He couldn't send no check. He could have had any situation, but they made it through it. So just having a loving picture of two parents that you could say, these were my parents.
Yeah.
That's a different picture. It ain't Blackish, but it's Kelly-ish. It's what Kelli has to showcase to the world, that I had two of these. So then it breaks up the narrative that there were never two people that were ever together that could show love. And she's broken because she didn't have two people, but you now can point to those two people. And that's a beautiful narrative that is part of a movement. Without shouting movement, it screams love and movement at the same time.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, I hope everyone uses this as an opportunity to really reflect on someone in their life that they could think back and say, because of them, I can, what have you. Another one, I haven't created an image yet, but I was telling a colleague of mine, in addition to my parents, I've had a lot of amazing Black teachers. I've been blessed to have a lot of amazing Black teachers, particularly in elementary school. And while I don't necessarily keep in touch with them or anything, I inherited their belief in me at a very young age. They set a standard for me. And so it could be someone like a teacher or a mentor or a neighbor or someone who just shifted something for you. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that this does, because I think that, to your point, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I think, to your point, that just pulling back, pulling from someone from wherever, I just think that there's a lot of power in how we build off of that. And to your point, it doesn't necessarily have to be something monetary, but it is certain. It still is something expendable, something that we can use to move forward.
Well, it reminds me of the Sankofa bird. When you think of what it represents and you think about the whole spiritual idea, you kind of know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And if you're acknowledging that in this moment, I think it's very therapeutic for our community to have a constant practice to remind ourselves to realign in love, realign in recognition, realign that there's something big that you have been getting. It's amazing how often people say elementary school was where I got this one thing, and this one teacher said I could, and you bring that from there, and then all of a sudden there's that one young person in New Orleans that says, I was like Kelli, and I always liked Kelli, and that person is getting hope and enjoys the fact that they found someone that believes and inspires them to continue on. I think when we talk about the wealth gap, making this a part of that movement and conversation, I like it because it's an innovative way to really talk about the fact that this gap is real and we have a role in eliminating it, on top of addressing and not being silent about the oppression and the system. What is Camelback doing as it's moving forward with your project to kind of eliminate that wealth gap just in the consciousness of our people?
So Camelback Ventures is, and I'm sorry, the dimmer's going off again. Camelback Ventures is an accelerator for entrepreneurs of color and women. And what we do is we actually, through our fellowship program, we actually work with entrepreneurs of color and helping them advance in what we call the 3 C's, which is coaching, capital, and connections, because we feel like entrepreneurs of color generally don't have the same runway or the same starting point as their white counterparts. And I should also say that we work with entrepreneurs who are all like social entrepreneurs. So these are all entrepreneurs who are working on ventures in education, what we call conscious tech, such as policy, workforce development, criminal reform, so forth and so on. So Camelback is basically creating or doing our part to create a more equitable ecosystem that gives these entrepreneurs a level playing field. Another thing that I think is important, and I'm never shy about this, is, we actually seed every entrepreneur that comes through our fellowship $40,000, because we know entrepreneurs of color generally don't have the same family and friends rounds that their white counterparts even get started. So we're really proud of that, because we want to be part of the friends and family round, again, that we know entrepreneurs of color generally don't have, but we know that they need that to succeed. So we are acutely aware of how the wealth gap impacts the runway, or just the runway in terms of entrepreneurship to just get these amazing ventures off the ground. To that extent, I just want to also say, I would be remiss if I didn't say it, is we see a lot of Black brilliance come through Camelback, and so ensuring that they have capital, coaching, and connections is vital to the world seeing their brilliance, as well as vital to ensuring that those most in need reap the benefits of their brilliance. So that's the role that we do with Camelback as it relates to closing the racial wealth gap.
That was my long pause.
Oh, okay.
The thing that I really enjoy, and because many people may not know what a seat at the table when we were talking about this basket. So instead of a person coming with a brilliant idea, having a brilliant mindset, having a brilliant model, and then having an empty basket, you make sure that you pour into that basket capital. Mm-hmm. What is the role of capital? Because I love the 3 C's you talked about. Mm-hmm. How important is it that that person has capital, i.e. funding, when they're working in their brilliance? What does that do to them and their engine? And their
capital, again, like I said, the money does matter. So capital allows them to grow. It allows them to grow in terms of capacity needs. It allows them to
and part of what I was going to share with you is, if many people may not know, and obviously you do, when you go and you need capital, you better know what that list is. So what are most people, entrepreneurs, using that capital for when they come to you?
Again, so we work with early stage entrepreneurs. So these are entrepreneurs who are in business but are looking to scale. So they have a proven model. They may have 1 or 2 kind of part-time employees, but they're looking to scale. So capital allows them to expand, stretch, and grow, and really reach more people in a way where they can service more customers and really get on solid footing and become profitable. So it takes money to make money. So that is what capital, that is what our entrepreneurs are using the capital for, basically, is to expand and grow. Because again, we work with early stage entrepreneurs. And for anyone who does, or I guess does not know about entrepreneurship, growing a business, particularly in early stage, is hard without capital. That's usually when either burnout happens, you go broke, and you can't go anymore. You're dipping into your 401k, all of these things that you shouldn't have to do. Entrepreneurs of color should have the same access and opportunity to funding as anyone else. And right now, that's not the case. Black women alone, we're the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, but we only receive about 0.02% of funding. So make it make sense. Like that just doesn't even, so that is where Camelback comes in hopes to help fill that funding gap. And again, give them the runway they need to succeed, because it's not just about them succeeding. It's about the people that they will impact that can now reach their full potential and succeed as well.
So that was the first C. And the second C?
Connections. So connections is, I guess that's a little bit straightforward, but
maybe not always.
Okay. No, that's true. That's true. So in addition to the money, it's all about who you know, like who you know, the relationships that you build. And again, entrepreneurs of color don't always have the same social capital as their other counterparts. So we do. I do strategic partnerships. So a big part of my job, as well as the team, is to really cultivate relationships that we can then bridge with our entrepreneurs who may need additional resources, such as tech resources, human resources, consulting, so forth and so on. So even in addition to the money, it's about the other levers that are needed for a business to succeed, that we can help build those connections and those relationships to keep those entrepreneurs moving forward. I would also say what that is, after they leave our program, after you get the family and friends round type funding, there are other types of rounds of funding that any entrepreneur would go through. So we use our connections to pipeline entrepreneurs of color into the right spaces where we know they too are putting their money where their mouth is, to ensure an equitable ecosystem for entrepreneurs of color.
So we got capital, we got connections,
and then coaching.
And then the coaching. So can you share insights on coaching?
Yeah, so coaching. So every entrepreneur, they get a personal coach, and then they get kind of a support system of different type of specialized coaches as well. And basically, those people serve as their personal champions through the fellowship. And those people are there to help with any specialized needs that they may have. From accounting to hiring to career, it just depends. But those people are there as almost like, those people are there. I'm trying to not reuse the word coach, but those people are there to push them in a way that where they're getting the skill sets that they need, but also the emotional support. That's what I was trying to say. The emotional support that they need as well. But again, everyone gets a personal coach, which is like a personal champion to them.
So you've seen businesses scale. You've been a part of a huge brand that scaled.
Mm-hmm.
Name two of your favorite Black entrepreneurs.
So let me go back for a second. So right out of school, I'll give you the somewhat abbreviated version. My mentor at the time called me one day. I really wanted to move to New York. And he was like, I'm working for this little small company called Carol's Daughter. We don't have a lot of money right now, so I can't hire you full time, but you could come on as a temp while you look for another job while you're in New York. So I got on the first thing smoking and started as a temp with Carol's Daughter. While I was there, I started just really adding value by improving processes and operations, so forth and so on. And long story short, I ended up getting hired full time about 2 months into my temp job at Carol's Daughter. At the time, Carol's Daughter, Lisa had that one store in Brooklyn. We were in a warehouse in Brooklyn, and we were doing maybe about 3 million in sales. I was part of the team that grew Carol's Daughter to like a $40 million brand. We sold it for over 100 million to L'Oreal. My time there was just, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was with Carol's Daughter for 10 and a half years. And I just feel like I got a very, I just have a personal testimony of what entrepreneurship and startup to acquisition looks like. But I will say this, as proud of the work that I have done with Carol's Daughter, I also understand how nuanced Lisa Price's story is, being a Black woman who was able to see her dreams come to fruition, which again ties me back to why I'm so passionate about the work I do with Camelback, because I think every entrepreneur of color should have that same fairy tale ending that Lisa Price had. So to answer your question on two of my favorite Black entrepreneurs, Lisa obviously would be one. And then the other one, I don't know, I have so many. Probably maybe my grandfather. So my grandfather, who I never met, but I feel like I'm living vicariously through him. He used to own, it was called Dots Beverages. So this apparently was back in the day when everybody still got, their milk and all their liquids delivered. And he had a very successful business here in New Orleans. He had 3 routes. He serviced all neighborhoods, uptown, downtown, everything in between. He was an incredible businessman. He owned properties, so forth and so on. And while like I said, I never met him, I truly do believe that his entrepreneurial spirit lives vicariously through me.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the picture of him that you post during this period to acknowledge the ancestors that are present through our actions and where we choose to place our time and our inheritance, which I really respect what you're doing. So I want to thank you for taking the time to have a seat at the table. I look forward to it. I'll figure out, I definitely commit to posting, and we'll make sure that we get you on our morning show so we can at least let everybody know what they should be doing. And I'll tell our social guys so you guys can go live on our IG for at least a few minutes to encourage people to post.
That would be awesome.
Thank you for all that you do. Any last words?
No, everyone, like, again, Tuesday, February 9th is the big day. Camelbackventures.org/inheritance. Post away. You can post as many people as you want. There is no limit to this. Make sure you use the hashtag next in line and tag Camelback Ventures.
Super. This is Monty Steed. I've been hanging out with Kelli here from Camelback Ventures. She has a wonderful program. Let's all support her. You do not have to be in the streets, but you must be in the struggle. I'm Monty Steed for A Seat at the Table. Peace.
Bye.